Ollie asks, why did you say the time for more Dubstar had long passed in 2014? It's a quote I've seen from you in many places, but I don't understand why you would say that. Gosh, yeah, Ollie, it's a good question. And I'm going to try and explain this without sounding too earnest or pretentious. But the most important thing in any music that I've written is that it was done with a sense of its sincerity and good faith, by which I mean that the music was intending to be the best that it could possibly be. But ultimately, the motivation in all of this is to make music that I think is good. In fact, what other criteria can you use when you're making music? It has to be that you think it's good. And I think that's where the root of that terrible but very useful cliche, we make music for ourselves, and if anybody else likes it, it's a bonus. I think that's where that comes from. I think you have to make music for yourself in order for it to be any good. And so I kind of realized that the parameters of what Dubstar could be had been defined decades earlier. And the songs and the lyrical concerns of Dubstar were basically the chaos of being in your 20s and how your life ultimately would unfold after that. Also, sonically, Dubstar was very 90s in some ways, but I think one thing that made us a little bit different from many of our contemporaries was that unconsciously we were using the aesthetic of the 80s. I think that certainly between me and Chris, we were thoroughly influenced by, I suppose, the more arty end of the 80s than many of our contemporaries who seem to just basically want to recreate the 1960s or 70s, which was never really our kind of thing. That kind of approach was really useful 30 years ago, but the musical culture has really kind of moved on. And I've also realized that I'm not that man who wrote those songs anymore. I don't have that kind of chaos in my life. I've been settled now for a long time. I've been happy for a long time. And I don't think it's that easy to write Dubstar style songs that concern themselves with being happy, if you know what I mean, or being reminiscing. I try not to use nostalgia too often because I think it's a bit of a cop-out, if you know what I mean. So what that would mean is that any new Dubstar material would be, I suppose, trying to remember what it was like to be melancholic. That's a different place to be writing from, and I don't think it suits the Dubstar brand. Earlier today, I was listening to the Roller Coaster album by an act called Red House Painters, and I love that album. So did Chris, back in 1993. And I hadn't listened to it in a very long time. And first of all, I'd forgotten how much I loved that record. But I also remembered being that bloke listening to that album and really feeling like this album was telling me how I felt at the time, And I realized I'm still that man, but I won't feel like that again. And much of the writing from that you hear in Dubstar comes from that same kind of emotional place. But they are the concerns of somebody who is 30 years my junior. Now, I do think that there are things to discuss in song about being, in my case, in my mid-50s. I think there is some really interesting things to say. I think you can listen to the work and the words of someone like Nick Cave, who is vastly superior to me in terms of writing. So there is interesting things to be said, but I don't think it suits that act. And that's why I said that I felt that the time for more Dubstar was long gone. Because you could do something else. You could write about something else. You could make music that sounds like something else, but it wouldn't be Dubstar. And that's why I think having done those 5 albums and more than 100 songs, that is enough, I think. Because any more would no longer be sincere. It wouldn't be done in good faith. And yeah, there's other things to explore.